Welcome to Psychic Insights, where pop culture meets higher consciousness and the tea is always a little bit mystical. I'm Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend, and around here we don't just watch the drama unfold, we read the energy behind it, whether it's celebrity scandals, reality TV, chaos, or true crime with a twist. I'm tuning in to bring you the intuitive scoop the headlines miss. So buckle up, because your aura's about to get entertained. Welcome back to my channel. It's Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend. Hopefully your favorite psychic on the internet. And if not, like and subscribe. Ring the bell. Maybe you will be. Anyway, today we're going to cover another psychic insight spiritual inquiry on our girl, Laura Owens. But we're going to try to talk about it in a sensitive and thoughtful way. As you know, it's not a legal analysis, and it's not a psychological diagnosis, and in any way, form, shape, or form is an attack on her and her mischief. It's my personal opinions, my psychic insights, my intuitive insights, and it's just really a spiritual and symbolic inquiry into the patterns of this person. I'm not looking at her innocence or guilt or any kind of verdicts that might come out of her current circumstances. We're going to ask a different question, and if you know me, that's what we're all about. We're all about asking different questions so we can kind of get an idea, because what I really love is human patterns and how they show up, and especially in this case when conflict repeats and escalates. And as we know, patterns are where the insight lives. And I want to be really clear. When I pull cards, they don't define this person. They just show themes that humans fall into. And we might see a little bit about ourselves in this too. So, I love looking at things from a spiritual perspective. And, in this case, we are seeing a lot of disputes in her life, in her very short 35 years, so many legal lawsuits, whether they're paternity suits or harassment claims or abortion, coercion, whatever the hell that means. And it's easy to jump to judgments about this person, but when we have a spiritual inquiry, we're asking something deeper. We're not saying, hey, what's wrong with them, even though I think that, but what the energy might be driving the pattern. This is the question I want to know. Because sometimes conflict isn't about the event itself, and sometimes, I've learned this in the past few days, sometimes it becomes an emotional anchor, and sometimes it becomes an identity, and sometimes it becomes a way to feel heard or justified or even safe, which is sometimes for me really kind of hard to understand. So that's why we're doing this today. All right, and this is not unique just to Laura. This is, every single one of us has patterns that we don't always see while we're inside them. And so if you don't know Laura, well, Laura Owens has been involved in many, many, many lawsuits, ranging from harassment to paternity suits to abortion coercion, as I've mentioned before, to legal suits against contractors, and the list goes on. And most recently, another harassment injunction against a content creator. So it comes to a place where you're like, girl, you have 14 felonies against you. Like, what's going on here? Like, what is driving this? And we've covered this in some, human design and her astrology, but I just wanted to pick strict cards today. And what I picked was birds, anchor, and man. And this we got a man in here, right? So this really kind of speaks to the first line of cards that I pulled it just speaks to the emotional energy that's just going on here. And the birds represent, mental chatter, anxiety, looping thoughts, heightened awareness of conversation or even public dialogue. The anchor represents a fixation or emotional docking, so to speak, and something that in some ways feels stabilizing. And the man here isn't really about romance. It represents authority, opposition, or even validation energy. And symbolically, this can suggest a pattern where engagement with authority or opposition becomes grounding. It's not about affection. It's not about love. It's not about rescue, but more a stability through engaging. And this raises universal questions. What does anxiety seek and anchor? Where does it seek and anchor? And when we repeatedly engage in the same type of authority or opposition, what emotional needs might be active? Are we seeking resolution or are we seeking equilibrium? And it has been said in other podcasts that, or, other data or information or whatever opinion, that Laura wasn't necessarily her father's favorite. And recently, Rich Lieberman, if you have seen his podcast, who has known the Owens family and has deep roots in the San Francisco media scene, where Ron Owens, Laura's father, was a superstar, if you will, on the radio. So, and it was said that Rich mentioned recently that Ron is no longer talking to his daughter. So what's going on here? Is this a deep-rooted trigger for her that, I don't have the stability of my father, and maybe never have? So it's kind of interesting to kind of think about, right? And we can have some compassion around that too, if we want to. So anyway, not diagnosing her, just looking at the cars, coming up with the thoughts that happen, right? All right, the next segment, the next line that I pulled was, we have the rider, we have the fox, and we have the sun. And this is really about behavior and visibility. Behavior and visibility. The rider is action, messaging, filings, movement, fast stuff. And fox is more of a strategy, calculation, self-protection. And sun is visibility, recognition, vindication, being seen. So maybe this combination doesn't feel all that accidental. It feels intentional, right? And the sun at the end of this line is super important because it represents a payoff energy. Not necessarily celebrity fame, but recognition or validation. So the question becomes, when someone takes strategic public action, what are they really hoping to gain? Is it admiration? Or is it being proven right? Does visibility sometimes become emotional proof? Something to think about. I find this fascinating, don't you? All right, my third line that I pulled, I got the cross and the mice and the fish, which is curious, okay? The cross represents burden or feeling wronged. And the mice represent anxiety and erosion that never quite stops. And the fish represents security, resources, and money, and emotional security. That's what fish is. It's interesting, right? Now, when the money appears, it's following stress, which makes a lot of sense with the current bankruptcy and the fact that she's testified that in her bankruptcy hearing that for 35 years she hasn't made a dime, never had a W-2 or 1099, nothing. I guess she never babysat either. I don't know, like it's mind-blowing, right? So when money follows stress, it's not leading it. So it suggests more like security anxiety rather than just simple greed. And the question shifts again. When stress is chronic, What external tools do we reach for to soothe it? Does money represent wealth or reassurance? And what happens when inner depletion seeks outer confirmation? So now I want to talk about escalation, because many people ask, why would anyone let this conflict go this far? 14 felonies and additional lawsuits. Oh my God. I mean, it's just like, we have to ask this question, right? And the truth is, this isn't just about one person. It's a human pattern. And there are 3 universal dynamics that can make escalation possible. And first, it's the escalation of commitment, when someone has invested time, identity, or reputation into a narrative. Changing course can feel like they're losing themselves, not just losing an argument. Humans often double down when backing down feels humiliating. And she's mentioned this. She's mentioned feeling humiliation. Okay, so then we have the second one, which is conflict as a stabilizer. For some people, conflict creates structure. It creates purpose. It gives something solid to push against, and letting go can feel more frightening than continuing. And we see a dynamic with her mother, and her mother seems to be doing the same pattern. So maybe this is something that is very familiar to Laura Owens. Something that she learned. Okay? So letting go of this pattern has got to be hard, right? You were brought up with this pattern. All right. And again, I am not excusing her behavior. I am just looking at it. I'm just asking questions, because, man, it's not what drives me, right? And so the third one would be the narrative momentum. And once the public has, once she has public attention or media, or when legal filings are involved, the story can take a life of its own. And people act defensively or strategically just to reclaim control or regain control of perception of the narrative. And this doesn't automatically mean someone is disconnected from reality, but sometimes it's emotional tunnel vision. And the immediate emotional payoff becomes louder than long-term consequences. And again, this isn't about one individual. It's about human cognition and emotion. All right, so instead of labeling a person, we can look at archetypes that exist in all of us. And I find this fascinating. We see the validator, the person that's seeking acknowledgement. We see the strategist using calculated moves to regain footing of her narrative. We see the stabilizer seeking anchors when unsettled. And we see the martyr carrying a burden narrative. And these are not insults against Laura Owens. These are human energies that we all move through at different times in our lives. I don't know if you have all been experiencing this in the energy lately. I know I have. So I think the question that came up for me is not only something I wanted to understand about Laura Owens, but about what is occurring in my own life. All right, so this is where the conversation turns inward, because the real question isn't about one individual. It's about all of us. And where do we seek validation from the outside instead of the inside? And when does conflict become an anchor? What is it that makes it stabilizing to us? And what narratives do we hold onto because they feel like identity? And what would security feel like if it didn't depend on being right or being seen? Escalation rarely starts with a desire for destruction. It usually starts with a desire to be heard, to be validated, or to feel safe. And the cards don't tell us who someone is. They show us patterns. And patterns aren't destiny, but they are invitations to awareness. And so if this content in this episode resonated with you, let me know in the comment section what you feel and what you think, and maybe a pattern or two that you've noticed within yourself or even with this case. I want to hear it. I read all your comments. You all keep it kind and respectful, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate your support of me and my channel. And I love doing this work. I love doing the spiritual inquiry. So like and subscribe. And if you'd like a reading with me, please check out my website at yourpsychicgirlfriend.com. And I'll see you in the next one.